Hello and welcome to another XRL F3 Championship round. And this week, taking the twin ring of Motegi. Seems to be on the road course version of it, not taking any part of the oval, because this track highly unique in the form of having a road and oval course on the same layout. Reminiscent to the absolutely iconic Monza. If there ever was a project to symbolise dogged determination against huge odds, then Twin Ring Motegi would be it. Built by Honda with a facility to showcase its products to both customers and the wider world. It's more than 10 years in the making and constructed on a size and scale unsurpassed anywhere across the globe. I'm Tim Cox, joined as always by the effervescent Chris Rowlands. And wow, what can we say about this championship? It's delivered on action drama every step of the way. Okayama was no different, but to the second round of the Asian leg of the championship. Find ourselves once again here in Japan. Chris, qualifying just underway right now. I feel it's going to be drama right again from the very start.
Well, it normally is, that's for sure. Good evening, everyone. And yeah, I think this is going to be another good race. Twin Ring is an incredibly underrated racetrack, in particular for open wheelers like the F3. I always love to see it on schedules. I love to see it in leagues. I'm happy we're here tonight. And it's quite different from what we're used to seeing in terms of the track profile that we've had in the XRL Championship so far. So it'll be interesting to see if that plays to the strengths of drivers we've not really seen near the top end of the podium this season yet.
And Chris, I got to admit, you are a little bit of a Motegi fanboy, aren't you? You absolutely love this place.
Oh, I do. I just think the quality of racing you can get around this track is actually really good. I mean, if you ever get a chance to look at a track map for this track, it's a very odd looking track. It's lots of long straights, lots of 90-degree turns or hairpins that sort of merge into one another really, and a very unusual final corner. But what it sort of creates is a track that's very easy to follow other cars on and gives you plenty of opportunities to either defend or attack another driver. And what that leads to is really good, really fun racing. So I do think that it's a little bit of a hidden gem, and I think in particular it suits open wheel cars. I've driven the Formula Renault 3.5 round here, and my word, it's a really fun combination. But the F3 is still an excellent car to drive around here, and I think that having that slight less power but more trust in the grip at full throttle, you can really throw the F3 around this track. And they've deliberately set the race to be a bit earlier in the day, which means the track temperature is a bit cooler. Although I say a bit cooler, it's still 43 degrees Celsius on the track, so the drivers are going to have to pay attention if they want to set a good time in qualifying today.
Well, right now, McKinley leading the way in qualifying. Bite of the cherry and straight to the top of the timing sheets with Van Gogh currently in second place. Drivers out on track at the moment, Chris. So a few of them trying to slot in some final times here before we head across into race one of the evening, where it's interesting affair. Definitely Rixie's on an improving lap, currently 9th at the moment. Jamie Ayres yet to set a time. He's completed 2 laps and his time's deleted. Just slipping out of track limits on each of those occasions. So if he has to start from the back, he's been one of the main protagonists so far this season, and he's definitely going to be one to watch out for if he has to come from the rear.
Yeah, and like we were saying earlier, I think it's not a track that it's not like for those of you who've watched the F1 today at Monaco. It's the opposite of that in many ways. So where we're just coming around the final turn, it's a very awkward final turn. If you get that slightly wrong with the car behind you getting a good exit, it's very easy. You see how long that straight is into a pretty traditional braking zone for turn 1s and turn 2. Pushing a little bit hard there, Ollie Ricks, and that's a shame. But one of the other tricky things about qualifying on this track is it's a minute 40 plus. I mean, Andrew McKinley on pole has done a 1:43.3. That is a much longer lap time than most of the tracks we've visited, and that means they've got, if you hark back to Lime Rock Park, where they actually managed to hit the lap limit, that has been set for this league. That's not going to be an issue tonight. I mean, no one has even got to a 4th lap yet. I mean, Steve Hefford on his 3rd lap and Will Carrington on his 3rd lap are the only two who even got that far. So if you make a mistake and need to go back to the pits, you're costing yourself a lot of this qualifying session for setting a new time. But yellow sectors for nearly everyone so far, which means no one's really been able to improve, he says, as Jamie Ayres puts his car into P7.
But definitely an improvement for him, and to his way up through the field during qualifying. Not long left now, around about 5 minutes left remaining here. Motegi will come out on top. Moment, your money's got to be on McKinley. That absolutely stunning lap that he's managed to put into play there. Absolute blinder from here. Just credit some of the other drivers, you know, seen from Seamson, of Hefford, Ayres, Carrington, Cullen as well.
Surprised there's no stream.
Pull out some really, really interesting ones, and well, it could go absolutely anywhere. And of course, Chris, for race 2, take the results from race 1, but the top 10 are inverted, so one person is going to miss out on that.
Yes, and it's interesting. It does create a layer of jeopardy, I would say, and I think for sort of, you know, if you look at the sort of drivers towards the back of the grid, so like someone like Ollie Ricks or Kansas Gentry, Alex Rogenberg, Alan Toon, we've seen certainly Rogenberg before has been able to take that race 2 pole position, but hasn't really been able to make that advantage stick so far. So it'll be interesting to see if any of the drivers nearer the back, because you look, you know, if you look from P3 down to P9, there's only a second separating them, so they're broadly on the same pace there. And, you know, I do think that the top drivers, as we've seen before, I mean, the sort of the chief protagonist for crazy field-siding performances, Sasha Chiapataru, not able to be here this evening, so we'll have to see if someone else can step up to the plate for that. But, you know, there's plenty of quick drivers in the field, but it's interesting to see how Andrew McKinley is a full half a second clear of Peter Van Gool, who is himself a full half a second clear of Ralph Cullinan, and then the rest of the pack. I do wonder if their one lap pace is going to translate to overall race pace.
It's going to be interesting, isn't it? That midfield from Cullinan all the way down to Hefford, 3rd to 7th. Incredibly tightly packed, just under 3/10 of a second, in fact, covering those drivers. So, for that midfield battle to be a little bit intriguing, but all it takes is one mistake from the likes of McKinley and Van Gool. They will be enveloped into that pack. That's where it gets interesting. And Ricks, Gentry and Rogenberg, the second group behind the main peloton, as you were. They're currently 8th, 9th and 10th. 2 seconds, 2.1, 2.6 seconds off the pace at the moment, but it's the last stage of qualifying right now. So around about 2.5 minutes is all that remains here. And we get to go racing here for the first time this evening. Find out who's managed to obtain a victory here. It's Hardy on a slight improving lap there, going green. You'll see from the bottom screen there, little bars denoting whether they've improved or not, and that's given sector. No improvement from Hardy in the first 3 sectors, but personal best, that's what the greens mean. Sectors 4 and 5. As he comes around underneath the over through turn 12 and into 13. So the time is he going to set Toon as well. He's on an improvement. Looks by the looks of things too. And it's Hardy, he's going to cut the timing beam. What does this mean? Currently 6th. Best 8, 144.68, and no improvement for him. Goes 0.2 slower, in fact. Tell you what, Van Gool, he's on an out lap, Chris. She looks like he's practicing his starts, to be fair.
I mean, that's a very sensible thing to do, especially with the high track temperatures we saw at the Daytona round a few weeks ago. Just how difficult these F3 cars can be to control. And you can see the corrections there for Jamie Ayres just coming around. I believe this is turns 3 and 4. Yep, it is, but you know, probably not enough time to get a lap in, or he's made a mistake and he already knows it's you know, it's easy to make these mistakes with these high track temperatures. It's an odd profile course because the sort of first 4 corners are all these 90-degree corners after long straights, and then you go into a bit of a wiggle from turns 5 through to 9, then a hairpin at turn 10, another 90-degree at turn 11, and then the very odd complex 12, 13, 14. So it's going to be interesting to see which drivers can cope with that best. But I'm really quite amazed by how close the midfield is, because there's basically 4 tenths separating 3rd down to 8th. So we're going to see some interesting midfield battles if those paces remain the same.
I didn't clock it. Gentry managed to improve, remains in 8th place, but really closing the gap up to Heifer currently in 7th. He was 2 seconds off place. He's managed to find half a second out there, so great improvement from him. Let's just watching the low car out on track right now, Currington, but it's due to come to the end of the session in a few seconds' time. There we go. That is qualifying done and dusted. So we transition across the race. Let's take you through your grid here. So McKinley on pole with Van Gool, him on the front row.
Good luck to everyone.
We've then got Cullinan and Ayres on the second row with Currington and Hardy.
Well done for that lap, Andrew. That's a cracker, matey. Well done
Hefford and Kansas Gentry, they are on the 4th row with Ricks and Rogenberg.
Good luck.
Last complete row, row 5, and
well done, Andrew. Good job,
rounding
mate.
out the field
well done on the pole there.
in P11.
Enjoy. Good luck, all.
Just
thank you, Carl.
and, we'll think we're not far away from one.
Let's have a fun one, all right?
Swing on Heifer to take to the grid. Then we'll be off racing here. Some more. So it's going to be, I'm sure, laps of excitement, drama filled. Once again here, the XRL Championship. Let's get ready to go racing, because here come the lights. And we will be going for the first time this evening. And we are away, but look at the start from the third row of the grid. Cullinan's got exchange of place with Currington. It's out on the grass there. Didn't quite clack who that was. One of the Currington's around, and there's a bit of contact there too. But Van Gool's really got away early at the start here, getting the jump on McKinley. The race into turn 1. Head focus turn 2, and then down towards turns 3 and then 4. This looping left-hander with a short straight in between, but they're really starting to pull away already. Ayres is in 3rd, Cullinan 4th. Ricks, you can just about see him in the background there. Starting to come through, but I'll tell you what, this is already hotting up an intriguing battle right at the start here, Chris.
Yeah, and I think it's worth these two at the front trying to work together to some extent, because it would be handy for them if they can create that gap. Trouble is, you can feasibly make a move at nearly every corner on this circuit if you get a good enough exit compared to your rival. So it's not going to be easy for Peter Van Gool. We've seen him in these situations before where he's been leading races, and just the amount of pressure being put on him, he's just not quite been able to manage it. So I'm really rooting for him. He's probably the strongest driver left on the grid that has yet to win a race. So I hope we can break that duck today. But Andrew McKinley, very quick driver behind him as well. This is one such opportunity, coming down the hill on the back straight into quite a heavy braking zone. And then again, you want to put pressure on coming into that last corner, because it's so awkward and you can really compromise the other driver as they come into the final corner. But Van Gool looking very confident on the brakes so far, Tim, I would say.
Really confident right now on the brakes. Cycle way through the field. To come across the start-finish line. Head out onto 2 here. Ready. Moving around. Ooh, is that at Rogenberg just he picked up a slowdown, moved really across to the right-hand side of the track there. Incredibly early, Chris, trying to keep out of everyone's way. Bit of a weird one from him.
Yeah, he's a very safe driver in my experience, so it's probably just a case of he picked up a slowdown. That last corner is so awkward, because you're braking as you're turning from the previous 2 left-handers. It doesn't quite look as tight as it actually is, and you really do have to slow down to make sure you can get enough turn in for that final, the main straight. And if you get that wrong, you compromise so much speed down the main straight. I mean, you see how much time Rogenberg lost out on there. And Will Corrington behind him has been setting purple sectors in the second half of that, probably driving in anger, having had that first corner incident. And he's got places to make up, but Alan Toon in the pits means that the 10 drivers currently on the track are probably going to be our 10 reverse grid positions. So at the moment, there's Kansas Gentry on provisional pole position.
Let's take a little look at what this is going to show us. This looks like it is the start. That is Corrington. He did it all by himself, didn't he, by the looks of things?
Yeah, I wonder if his brake bias is set a little bit funny compared to what he was expecting, and that car just went round as he was under braking with cold tyres. Yeah, I think he didn't expect the car in front to slow down as much as it did, put too much brake pressure on, and that sent that car round.
Another car involved in that. Looks like he's done a further incident as well.
Well, he's got a very good launch and had nowhere to go and ended up on the grass, which is a shame for him because he got a very good launch indeed. But so you know, sometimes you have to bail out, and he's still able to drive around. He is intent, and that looks like that's what's happened to Alan Toon. Like I say, very tricky last corner, and stuff like that is so easy to do.
Easy replay now of Gentry, the American. 211, Delar referee, and just losing the rear there on corner entry. Exactly how many scores on the tail. Well, that's been going on. Looking at those replays, change for the lead has happened. McKinley has managed to get his way past Van Gool. Now, what can he do? I'll tell you what, Ayres isn't far behind, is he? He's coming along for the ride too.
Yep, this is why sometimes it's worth thinking about cooperating with your other driver. Because McKinley and Van Gool have got the pace. They could probably have tried to get away from Ayres. Ralph Cullen in fourth is not exactly lost yet either, and that's what happens for McKinley to get past. That hairpin round the back, it is quite an odd braking zone. But actually McKinley, I must say, has done very well to defend this position because Van Gool has had a good run coming down the hill. And there's a replay of Steve Hefford again. The high track temperatures and the heavy braking, I think just making it is a real challenge for the drivers. But you can see now McKinley does look like he's beginning to build a slight gap. I wouldn't call it a massive gap, but it's enough of a gap that he's comfortable, and Van Gool is probably now looking in his rearview mirrors rather than straight ahead on the track.
See, Ayres definitely carrying some damage there. That scuffed up nose cone, then front left portion of this front wing. Not going to be helping him at all. This time with McKinley, he is setting a new personal best, and there it's all over the back of Van Gool. A mountain challenge to get up into second place. Now, Chris, where's this going to be his best opportunity? Maybe in the braking zone to turn 11, or do you think he's going to wait that long?
Well, he's got plenty of opportunities, really. You can probably turn 1 is a bit tricky because it's the shallowest of the braking zones for the 90-degree corners. Turn 3 is always a good one, which we've just come out of. It's not happened there. We're coming up to turn 5 now. You can overtake here, but you end up losing so much time. Although you can see there, Van Gool got a very bad exit, and it's allowed Ayres alongside and through. And it's a good place to get through because it's just a little bit harder through 7, 8 and 9 to try and make that overtake. So he's going to have some time to get away from Van Gool before we get to the braking zone of zone 10, and then the long straight between 10 and 11. So that's quite good timing for Ayres. That's unfortunate for Van Gool, and he's not got Ralph Cullen. You know, he's close enough that he's going to have to pay attention that he doesn't slide too far down the standings. But Ayres has looked, I think, a bit more in control of his car in this last lap and a half. So I suspect there was an element of inevitability in that overtaking manoeuvre, and actually Van Gool not even really making best use of the draft there. So I don't see the comeback happening into the braking zone here. And, you know, they are teammates as well, so they're not going to want to crash into each other. They want to try and catch up. Andrew McKinley, who's got his brand new livery on for tonight, and it does look rather lovely indeed.
I'll tell you what, all this fighting between Ayres and Van Gool, he's allowed McKinley to really open up. We got 2.5 seconds. He's managed to amass already. Much quicker than the cars behind, just on the last lap alone. I know Ayres and Van Gool were battling, but McKinley going some 6 tenths of a second quicker than Ayres last time around. So Cullen, and he's not far behind, is he though, Chris? He's still you know, in with a bit of a shout, in with a bit of a snip here. It's just coming up to 1/3 race distance.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe how quickly that's gone, the first few laps. But yeah, I think this front four, certainly as Vangel, Cullinan, they've done well to sort of try and keep up with each other. And the nice thing now is at this stage of the race is they can start thinking about the battling, and it doesn't matter a huge amount if they cost themselves time. I mean, obviously, I think Jamie Ayres is going to believe he's got the pace to try and catch McKinley, but has he got enough pace that he can bridge that 2.5 second gap and make an overtake in the remaining 12 minutes of this race? Whereas Ralph Cullinan, he's 4.5, 5 seconds clear of Ollie Ricks in 5th, so he can, if he can catch up to Vangel, start taking more risks and, you know, allow himself to compromise a bit more time, which would bring maybe, for example, a turn 1 or a turn 5 overtake a bit more into play.
Standings as we approach half race distance. McKinley is in the lead and amassing a real solid 2.5 seconds advantage right now. Well, 2.8 seconds, apologies, over Ayres in second. There he is. Vangel hasn't exactly, you know, dropped off at all. Cullinan not far behind as well. He's in 4th. He's had a great start. He's at 4 places so far. It's a great start from him. Hardy remains where he was in 6th. And got Hefford in 8th. Rogenberg 9th. Gentry rounding out his top 10 to a lap down in 11th. Obviously after having to take that trip to the pits. Right now it's all about this battle between Ayres and Vangel of who is going to come second on podium. I mean, can Cullinan catch up with this one, Chris? It's a bit of a tricky one. I mean, just looking at their lap times, he's lapping at, you know, very consistent, similar lap times to the cars in front of him. However, anything can happen. It will happen at the drop of a hat.
Exactly, and with the high temperatures, you can't afford to push at 100% for the whole 20 minutes because you will make a mistake. You can just see how close the grass is to the edge of this track along some parts of it. There's some reasonably generous curving in places, but you put one tyre on that grass in the wrong place and your car is going round. I mean, look at Jamie Ayres there. Could not really have let his car go much wider on the exit of that hairpin. And yes, there are just a few places. I expect we'll see more incidents out of the final corner. Perhaps not in this race, but certainly in race 2, because the field will bunch up. And you can see slightly, you know, this is a line I've never been able to take here, where they go very wide just to try and make the angle of attack into that final corner shallow. You see there, Ayres again just right on the edge. Ayres is really having to push to keep Vangel behind now, and we'll have to see, has he got enough control of that car to not make that mistake? I mean, I think Steve Hefford has just gone round, so there's someone who might not be able to keep the car on while pushing.
A replay coming in, so this might give us some answers exactly what's happened to him. All across the curves, around the rear gates. That's out of turn 5 and into the bumper. He's lost his front wing. If we can measures it again. Not exactly helping him right now in his endeavours to make his way up through the field, down 3 places, Hefford into 10th place. Rogenberg and Ayres, they're both up 2 places. Rick's obviously the only other driver, so people think something's happened to Hardy. I've just seen him drop place. Let's take a look at the replay. What's happened to him? That was Currington just behind him. And, oh no, sorry, apologies, it wasn't. That was Rick's in front of him, and he's lost it all by himself under braking there, Chris.
Yeah, I think just braking a little bit too hard. You could see him catch up to Ricks very suddenly in the braking zone. And then I think having to adjust to the fact he was carrying too much speed, just putting a bit too much pressure through those brakes. I think with the way the F3 car has been changed in the last 2 or 3 seasons, it is now much more susceptible if you're running the wrong brake bias. It will just, you know, the snap oversteer in the rear, it will just go. That wasn't really a thing sort of 4 or 5 seasons ago, and I think it's a nice change because it just means that the drivers have to pay. You know, you can't just hammer this car around and not worry that it's going to lose it. You have to be careful under braking. Now we saw Currington on lap 1 get caught out by it, and now we've seen Carl Hardy on lap 8 also suffer the consequences of just having to push that little bit harder. But Van Gool, Tim, is keeping up with Ayres. This battle has not relented.
He's definitely keeping up with this, isn't he? He's get away at all. Despite getting that move done a few laps ago now, about 5 laps ago, wasn't it? It's not letting him get away. He's stayed, you know, well within the fight. Currently 7/10 margin. You can see where Ayres is a lot stronger into turn 5. So he opened up around about 3 or 4 attempts there. That seems to be the main point of the difference between Ayres and Van Gool right now. Anything that's allowing Ayres to keep this gap and actually slightly extend it at times, but just trying to bring that back down again. McKinley well out in front. He has fully checked out, nearly 5 seconds clear, 13 minutes on the clock, out of 20. And I believe something has happened to Gentry because he's dropped down through the order. Ooh, is this going to be the elusive turn 5 again, Chris?
Yeah, I've been quite surprised. As we see, always a slightly different incident, but similar to the Hefford incident that we saw earlier, where, you know, very aggressive on the inside curb, and it just destabilises the car just a little bit too much. But again, these drivers are looking for every bit of advantage they can get. It's allowed Hefford back through into ninth, but Hefford and Gentry, as it stands, are going to be our front row in 7 minutes' time for, well, 7 minutes plus warm-up time until we get to race 2. So it's, you know, it's not the end of the world that they've ended up at the back of the grid, because we've seen decent pace at times from both those drivers this evening. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it develops in race 2 with that. But Ayres, I think you saw last lap, as you pointed out, Tim. His strengths in the middle of the track mean he's just about managed to get out of draft range for Van Gool now. And I think that's probably going to compound because there's so many straights here that Van Gool could have taken advantage of. And now that he's lost that, I suspect we'll see Ayres slowly pull away unless he makes a mistake because of how hard he's pushing.
Rick's currently trying to chase down Currington. It's in the battle for 5th place. Rick's seeing 3 places at the moment. He's at 4, so it has dropped 1. But a lot of drivers seem to be suffering with a bit of damage to the front wing there, Chris. You can see the front left is definitely a bit twisted. There's more.
Good save.
Almost, wasn't it? It's nearly losing it there. And I'm guessing this must be from where they're clouting the curb so hard.
Yeah, I think there's an element of that. It's a small amount of damage. It's probably not in a 20-minute race enough to cause concern, and you're actually probably going to gain more of an advantage from driving aggressively than you are losing from the damage you take from doing that kind of driving. But of course, the aggressive driving, it's almost moot when you end up losing, say, half a second from having to pull off an effing save. But it's not as exciting if you drive boring and safe, though. We want to see the drivers boom these cars around this track, and Ollie Rick's providing the entertainment for us in the last minute or so.
I'll tell you what, despite Ayres, you said earlier about, you know, once you break that draft, that you'd probably we see him break away from Van Gool. Well, I'll tell you what, Van Gool's managed to claw back some time here. This is put the gap down to just under 9/10 of a second, only a fraction under, but Van Gool finding some pace here in the latter stages. We've got 3.5 minutes remaining in race 1, and Van Gool pushing right until the very end with success.
Yeah, but is he going to run out of time? I mean, we've got 3.5 minutes left. McKinley has checked out front, as you said before, and he can afford to take it easy now, although we saw at Line Rock that it's not always, you know, it's not a guarantee. Just because you're out front with a big gap, it's still possible to make a mistake. And yeah, I feel like Ayres is still the favourite in this battle here, but we've said this about drivers before, and all it takes is 1 microsecond of making a mistake, And again, I think Ayres is very aggressive on the curbs around this track, so we could easily see a problem, and that is not a healthy looking car.
Hefford's elected not to come in and fix the damage, and that's him making his way past the stricken car of Kansas Gentry on the inside there. Amazing Hefford managed to just crawl it around to try and drag that car home. Wow, Van Gool has taken a big chunk of time out of Ayres, and Ayres coming under pressure. The last thing he's going to want in these closing stages here in Motegi. Electrical fans all queued up to see the action here. What an ending they are due to get. Van Gool now has the gap down to 6/10 of a second. Yes, just 6/10. Grown to well over a second, and at the moment Ayres definitely seems to be stronger, Chris, during that first part of the circuit.
Yeah, he really is, but I'm a bit interested in the way Van Gool was driving as we came along the main straight there, because he pulled out immediately, but he was still 4/10 away, so he had plenty of drafts to try and gain the advantage with. I wonder if it was an element of, again, where they're sort of both driving for Team SimLab, I wonder if it was a case of don't get in each other's way, don't trip up over each other. And here we see Alex Rogenberg, and I've done this, and I hate that corner for that reason. It's so easy to do what he's done there, because it doesn't look like a chicane you need to fully slow down for. And yet there he is, and he's been, well, I guess the positive is it's another reverse grid pole for Alex Rogenberg as it stands, so there's a silver lining there. But yeah, that last chicane is so difficult to get right, and it really speaks to how well Jamie Ayres is driving, that he hasn't made too many egregious mistakes coming out of that final corner under the amount of pressure he is now from. And again, look how aggressive he is on the curves, 2 wheels on the grass, but good car control there. And he's probably got one more lap to try and defend. I don't think McKinley's going to come across the start-finish line in the next 40 seconds. But again, Van Gool pulling out Tim, so I think this is 2 teammates working together.
The white flag flies here in Motegi in race 1. 1 lap left to go. McKinley leads from Ayres. Van Gool in second. Cullinan, despite those early advances, you see he's just dropped off the pace a little bit. And finds himself, 4.3 seconds down the road from these top 2 in a place on the podium. Currington, he is 5th where he started. Ricks at 3rd place in 6th with Hardy set down 1 into 7th. Gentry remains in 8th. Hefford has dropped 2 places. He's down from where he started, down to 9th. Rogenberg in 2. Yeah, all field for now. 2, 1 lap down. For a much stronger race 2. We'll be starting from the back, as you mentioned. Rogenberg will be starting from pole, but right now it's all about this battle, and it is closing in between Van Gool and Ayres. Are there team orders going on? Well, we will find out. Not long left in this lap, just over halfway through, but there's Ollie Ricks having a little bit of an excursion across the grass, really saving the groundskeeper some oh, that's 2 corners in a row, and that time he loses it. And yet again, Chris, I do believe that's turn 5, isn't it? It's catching everyone out today.
And it wasn't the turn I expected to be the main culprit. But yeah, I mean, it is quite a heavy, again, another deceptively heavy braking zone as McKinley comes through to take the win. But yeah, I wonder if race 2 will be the same, Tim.
Have to wonder. Then McKinley takes the victory as he's going to come across the line. Only 3/10 for the second between South and Van Gool. In the end, Cullinan picks up that 4th place. Currington, results clothing driver, coming home in the 5th. Carl Hardy's going to pick up that 6th place.
You will
just coming around the corner. Good result from him. He's up 2 places.
You got there, Andrew.
Into 7th.
Yeah, what happened to you guys? You were literally like nearly a second off.
In the lap.
Or
Hefford around about
like
2 seconds behind right now.
A couple of mistakes.
And across the line. So a few drivers here at Motegi. And there we go. Chris, another astounding result here once again, and let's just have a little bit look through the through the results of race 1. I'm just waiting for those to in a little bit. Apologies about that one. We'll bring you through those shortly, but wow, as we head across into the warm-up session now.
The sort of the difficulty that is coming through the field, but not getting taken out because they're so bunched up, because the pace, the nature of a reverse grid bunches up the field. So I'm really interested to see how they deal with it with the high temperatures today.
Definitely going to be a interesting one, as you mentioned. Cool ambient temperatures, once again 20 degrees Celsius. It's that 48-degree track temperature. It's such a killer, isn't it? It makes the track surface almost feel like ice at times.
Oh, it really does, and it's nice to be up in the commentary booth where it's not something that we have to stress out about. Whereas, yeah, I mean, the drivers will be used to it now, so in theory, you're going to see some slightly more aggressive driving in round 2. But of course, it is 10:50 in the sim time in the morning. It's only going to get hotter as we get towards 11 o'clock and then midday. So those track temperatures are slowly rising, and it's just going to get that little bit harder. So I think we haven't seen the final spin at turn 5 this evening.
I don't think we had. Let's take you through those results. Oh, Heat 1, McKinley winning at a canter in the end. 9.1 seconds clear. Second place airs with his teammate Van Gogh right behind him. Only 3 attempts in the end. Cullinan dropped off as the race went on from our top, from second and third place to come home fourth. His teammate Currington some 7 seconds behind him in fifth. Carl Hardy in sixth. Good result from him. Briggs likewise. Gentry eighth. Hefford, well, that front wing damage. Where it snaps off, to be fair. That elusive turn 5 catching him out. And he had to finish the rest of the race, pretty much half the race. No grip at the front, and brings it home ninth. Rogenberg in 10th with 1 lap down. Last runner in 11th. But a bit of consolation for Hefford and Rogenberg. They will be starting from the front row of the grid.
Yeah, let's see if they can take full advantage of that. But as we saw, in the first round, unless you've got a supreme pace advantage, which McKinley does seem to have, it's going to be very difficult to build that gap with the amount that the cars behind can draft. And as we saw on the first lap of the first race, the cars do seem to bunch up, even if there's only 11 of them on the main grid. So it's far from over, basically.
As they say, it's not all over until the fat lady sings, or in this case, until the checkered flag flies. Of course, these race 2 reverse grids have always brought excitement, drama, fun, and action to this championship. I'm sure. But race 2 here at Motegi, it's going to be no different. Just seeing a few shots there. We can just see the oval that intertwines, well, the road course, in fact, intertwines amongst the oval. Did you ever have a chance to drive on the oval circuit here?
No, I never have, although I did for the first time. I can't remember who I was watching. It was probably Conducci Racing. I was watching one of the mental ones that he races on. I think it was Lotus 49. I believe they visited the outer ring this season in the officials. But I guess it's it's sort of almost like a real life tragedy in that the organisers of this track built that sort of hybrid course to try and attract as many types of motorsport as possible, and they were very much flirting with IndyCar and I think even at one point NASCAR, but there's not necessarily the interest or the willpower from either side to maintain it, and it's a shame because I think both sides of this facility are amazing, and it would be really lovely if we could have more racing here, quite frankly.
Well, of course, the circuit is built by Honda. We've got the Indy 500 going on this weekend on the supply engines to that championship along with Chevrolet. And what you say, what we can see the oval used here in IndyCar. You think, combined with the course, Takuma Sato, of course, driving in IndyCar as well. There's definitely a bit of, certainly some interest from not only Japan, but also Honda as a manufacturer. So a little bit surprising that you don't see this track on the oval section currently used. It's a bit of a crying shame, really, in some ways. Our drivers just heading out, putting some big bits of practice here in the warm-up session between the two races. Effort, Ayres and Gentry have all headed out across the track. It's all going to be down to the start. Who's going to get away cleanly? Not too far away from race 2. Another 20 minutes of racing, of drama, and the drivers don't have the comeuppance at turn 5 yet again in race 2. It's looking down on it right now from the oval. You can see on the right-hand side of your screen right now. I think it was stairs heading through there. No, apologies, that was away at all. And so Chris Suzuka next week before we round out the season at Bathurst. It'll be definitely an interesting one, isn't it? Two very different circuits taking the last 2 rounds of the championship.
Oh yes, indeed. And Suzuka is, it's a classic open wheel circuit. I think that's going to be an absolutely fantastic round, and hopefully we have decent attendance for that, because it's a track that appears on many calendars, so I suspect many drivers will have it. But Bathurst, I don't know, there seems to have been, I would say, in the last 4 seasons or so last calendar year, there's been a real resurgence of Bathurst being used by open wheel races. It's been on the Formula Renault 3.5 schedule, which is not a thing I ever expected to see. It's been on the Formula 3 schedule, which is I slightly more expected to see it, but there's enough GP style circuits that I would have assumed we'd never have to go there. But then we go to Virginia as well, which is another, perhaps not the first track you're thinking of when it comes to Formula 3, but variety is the spice of life, and I think Motegi, Suzuka, Bathurst is quite a nice varied final 3 rounds for a championship.
It is, yeah. You're saying about Bathurst and Formula Renault 3.5, top split broadcast there, and well, it is. Let's just say, you think an absolute disaster. Well, it didn't. It was absolutely brilliant, and the drivers absolutely loved it as well. Yes, you've got the treacherous downhill section, and if one person makes a mistake near the front of the train, then it normally ends in disaster for everyone behind them. However, they range relatively cleanly, so big chance for our drivers to make some progress. You can make big gains and big losses there, so it's going to be a really, really interesting one to round out the season in a couple of weeks' time. Suzuka. Next time though, Chris, that iconic, scale electric style layout that it has, that figure of 8. And I find it a bit of an odd one, Chris, because there's overtaking opportunities there, but you've got to be really on your game to make sure you capitalise on them.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's a track where you can battle the whole lap round, but there's only really a few clear-cut places. So into the chicane at the end of the lap, sort of turn 1, but it's a very shallow braking zone, so you need to be alongside to make that stick. And maybe if you fancy a dive bomb into the hairpin just after the bridge. But it's very easy to follow another car around that track, especially I think the F3. This is one of the really nice things about the F3 car, is that it's a really lovely mixture of, it's fast, but it's not mad. It's quite low power by overall racing standards, which it sits in that sweet spot where it's easy to just drive it, but it's very hard to drive it super quick. But it's not too hard to drive it while battling other cars. You've got enough, you're in control enough, you're not worrying a huge amount about overdoing on the throttle like you would be in the more powerful cars that you have on the service. Even the F1 with the ludicrous amount of downforce that it has, you have to be very, very careful on the throttle as you get away, which is not so much the case in the F3. And I do think that the bigger circuits like Motegi tonight and Suzuka next week, they are so lovely for good battling, just because there's a decent margin for error that you maybe don't have at Bathurst, which is going to be a different challenge for that reason, but I think still an entertaining one.
I definitely did, and things are just starting to round out here in the warm-up session. Coming across to race 2, and let's just take you through the grid for race 2. Rogenberg starts on pole, of course that reverse grid kicking into effect from the results from race 1. Heffer joining him on the front row. Gentry and Ricks there on the second row of the grid, with Hardy and Currington on the third row. Cullinan and Van Gool, they make up the fourth row, with Ayres and race 1 winner McKinley demoted to 10th. Valentoon rounding out your grid here from Motegi for the second race of the evening. What an absolute peach it is due to be, just waiting on, I think it's Ricks that takes to the grid. Yeah, that's where his empty grid slot is currently. Be off, and away for the final time. 20 minutes for drama and excitement. Reverse grid. You know it brings the action. You know it brings the excitement. Oh, we can't wait for it to unfold. It's to deliver, but here come the lights, and let's get ready to go racing for the final time from Motegi in the XRL F3 Championship, and we are away in heaven. Being a strong start, but not as good as Rogenberg. Look at the start that he has got out into the lead. Ricks coming through the field as well. Van Gool already at 3 places here, the Dutchman. The Flying Dutchman, based on that opening start here. Everyone fanned across the track. 2 wides galore on the run through towards turns 3 and 4. And all this event, that's Rogenberg. He is around. And that absolutely epic start unfolded in the blink of an eye. Let's take a little look at exactly how this unfolded. He's going to have lost it all by himself here. And I'll just cut it out onto the grass, and wow, how close was Heffen to avoiding him. That was incredibly close there. Let's see if we can get you another view of that one. Let's take a little look, see if we can. So this is from Heffen's front nose cone, which Rogenberg run it out wide, flying around, maybe not just showing it the best there.
The advantage he's now got from that is that he is a second and a half clear. Well, look how much the field behind are having to fight, because again they're all bunched up because they're sort of the wrong way round. But on the other hand, quite a few of the drivers, like you say, Van Gool is up 4 places on that first lap, but Andrew McKinley, he's not quite been able to take advantage quite so much. He's still in P8 and being very patient right now as Carl Hardy and Jamie Ayres in front are battling. This is a very awkward place to have your car. Oh dear! I think that was inevitable around that last corner. It's a very tricky corner, and that's very unfortunate for Jamie Ayres. Although Andrew McKinley's gone right as well.
Oh, it's all happening here. Your race 1 winner, he is around. Outside way back when Jamie Ayres, a bit of contact there, so him around. And then McKinley is off. Oh, he has a instantly somewhere out on track. We'll see if we can bring you that shortly.
Well, I think what happened to McKinley is that he went wide onto the outside as you're coming onto the back straight to avoid that accident. Oh dear.
No, that is Currington and Van Gool making contact. Oh, and Van Gool coming off the worst. There's Currington now in the battle with it's Carl Hardy there, yeah, just popping his way through. Gentry had the best of open laps, dropping 3 places to 6th, however not as bad as what Rogenberg had. I tell you what, I think Ayres is out after that contact. So if you bring another replay of that one, so it wasn't the best. Let's take a little look. So that's post-event. Try to come back onto the track. Let's see if we can kind of... There's been a contact from behind. McKinley had his own as well as he came flying through. Of course, some grass on the outside. Around he goes. That's slippery iRacing grass, claiming yet another victory. just in general, really, not so much just here at Motegi. It happens everywhere. Hefford, new fastest lap of the race, 1:45.1. Following him behind, but wow, what a lead Hefford has got as Van Gool and Rogenberg. Not sure what's happening there. There's Rogenberg. Van Gool, he's disappeared a little bit in there into...
He's now, I believe, had to go into the pit lane. I wonder if, now I've been caught out by this before, the entry for the pit lane here at Motegi is... it's confusing, to say the least. But the advantage of Van Gool is, so they've got one faster repair. Jamie Ayres, I think, had to tow because of the damage he had, so he's had to wait for that to clear before going ahead. Van Gool has been able to get that car back to the pit, so that's going to be a pretty big advantage. But at this stage, it's going to have to take a lot of incidents for him to be able to recover any decent number of positions. But I'm very impressed with Ollie Ricks managing to keep pace with Steve Hefford, who I would say, you know, without wishing to disparage anyone, my default understanding would be that Hefford is a quicker driver than Ricks, but you know, he's only 1.7 seconds behind the leader. That is a gap that is easily caught, or at the very least it's close enough to put the pressure on Hefford, and we've seen how easy it is to just put one or two tyres onto the grass a la McKinley on the final corner, and the amount of time it costs you there, although I think McKinley's done very well to only be 13 seconds off the lead after that. He'll probably be thinking, what could have been if he hadn't have done it? He'd probably be up in
Hardy's
by now.
made a mistake there, Chris. He's come off track, and that's brought Currington right back into the equation for his gearbox right now. So scrapping it out down the run, start finish straight. So down the back straight, isn't it? And there's going to be a move on here. Start finish straight.
Currington's managed to get through.
John, where you've got that separate, like the national pit lane along the long back straight, it always catches me out with this circuit, Chris. It's, the blink of light when you've got a bit of exciting action on the track as to which part of the circuit you're on, because they do look quite similar. But as you mentioned, McKinley, that's a slap of the race from him, and getting, sleeves rolled up, getting stuck in.
Yeah, we'll see how good he is at slicing his way through the field, taking a much more conventional line through turn 5 than Kansas Gentry, but perhaps the way that Gentry's taking that corner is just, a little bit less risky, and that might be the name of the game here, because the amount of positions that some of the drivers have made, like Ralph Cullinan, for example, I don't believe, there goes the overtake, so that's McKinley one down, although I think it was very much facilitated by Gentry. But look at Ralph Cullinan in third, for example. I don't believe he's made a single overtake, but he's up 4 places because he's driven clean and he's driven smart. And sometimes that's the name of the game in these kinds of races.
Currington and Hardy lots of from that. So really scrapping it out in Motegi. And continuing that rich reign of battles into race 2. Past the elusive turn by the course, so much trouble, so much world of pain, and that was nearly Cardi straight into the back there. It was incredibly close stuff, and the amount of time he's lost because of the way the pace of action will take. He's right onto his tail, right behind is the Brit. Content with that 4 places, of course, that's really early on as well, not helping him, but covering, coming back through the fields. Already up to 6th and looking to make it 5th position for him.
Yeah, I mean, that final corner near instant for Hardy there is a perfect illustration of why slowing fast out is a racing mantra, because the amount of time he lost from all the pace he lost on the main straight, that was the main problem for him there. It wasn't so much as coming in too quick, although that's obviously why it happened, but the actual taking the corner badly only cost him a 10th or 2. The remaining 0.8 of a second come from losing the speed down the straight. So it seems to be the corner he struggled with the most. Obviously, we saw that incident earlier on with Ayres, and the lap before as well, he was wide into it. So we'll have to see. Does McKinley know that that's a weakness for Hardy? Is that something he'll be able to exploit? Because it might just be worth waiting until we get back on the main straight and then not having to worry about Hardy potentially misjudging the braking in front of him.
DRS markers, of course, that's the best here. free. Down the back straight. They go. Right now, having any answers for Hardy. Yet another lap here. And now on to lap 5 of McKinley applying the pressure to the absolute maximum to Hardy right now. Pulls out of the slipstream as they run down to turn 1. They're going to be side by side. Who's going to be the last late rear? Because Hardy just tries to hang it on right around the outside. But McKinley makes it stick. Here in Japan, that is 5th place for him. Up 5 places. Now begins the pursuit. Or does he? Of Covington, because Hardy says, oh no you don't. But a bit of contact there. It's amazing just how much those front brakes are really glowing here. You see it really lighting up.
Oh yeah, they're driving these cars as hard as they can. I think Carl Hardy's on a single monitor. He's doing a lot of things I've done in the past on my single monitor where you're trying your best to leave the room, but you just don't always have that complete peripheral vision. And again, this is probably a track that most of these drivers have not done tons of laps around, so the trickier parts of it, you're going to see mistakes be made, which is why I'm surprised we've seen so much into turn 5 and not quite as much as I expected into the final turn or out of the final turn. But yeah, McKinley's now got Currington, who's, I think, of the drivers he's come past, Currington has got the most raw pace. But from what we've seen of McKinley in the tail end of this season, I do think he'd be favourite in a one-on-one battle. But then is there enough time for him to potentially catch Ralph Cullinan in 3rd? They are 5 seconds behind. But is it worth pushing that hard when you could potentially lose all these positions to the drivers behind? Because it's worth keeping an eye on the overall series standings. There are prizes for the top 3, so I'd say most of these drivers in the top 5, 6, 7 are all in contention for those end of season prizes still.
Closing up the gap down now to a 2nd. 2 Currington ahead. Can't you, Chris? Currington elects to run it a bit deeper so they can really open up turn 2 and get on the power much sooner than Cullinan. He's going for a bit more of a traditional wider arc. We have got JBS, he is back out on track. This is on. Replay coming in, so this is of 2. What has happened to him? Runs it around a little bit too deep and keeps it out of the wall. Maybe not. No, he hasn't got the car wedged, luckily, but it's going to be front wing damage on that one. And off he goes. Currently in 10th place.
Well, he's only 6 seconds behind Van Gogh, so he's doing pretty well on that front. But yeah, I'll be interested. 7/10 behind Currington here, McKinley. Certainly the fastest driver on the night. He does have the fastest lap in race 2 as well. No, he doesn't actually. Peter Van Gogh has gone slightly quicker. So that'll be another driver probably ruining what could have been another successful race. It just goes to show you don't necessarily need to have the raw 1 lap pace to be successful. And again, Ollie Riggs is still within touching distance of Steve Hefford, although as I say that, I think Riggs has had an incident because he is coming down. If you see some smoke, that's probably from Ollie Riggs.
He looks like he's had an incident now on the circuit, and now he is feeling a whole world of pain. He's looking right behind him. Well, it is Currington, it is McKinley, and they are chasing him down hard. Yes. That's really running as well. Where has the time flown in race 2? Out of 20. 7 minutes left to go. Places up for grabs. Currington and McKinley scrapping this one out. So after that mistake, it's right back in. That's allowed. Looks like racing Cullinan as Currington goes from him. It's been a bit vulnerable. McKinley looking to follow him through here. This for a back place on the podium. And now McKinley right on to the gearbox from Riggs. Oh, by 40 managed to hold it. Goes to full Tokyo drift. Hardy shoots through. He just had to back it out of that one a little bit. Now you can see a place on the podium because Currington, it's a Riggs' mistake, is now elevated up there. fan out onto the back straight. He is in point. Slipstream range, only 3 tenths of a second. That's the gap is tumbling as he starts to absolutely envelop Currington, but if he's going to be a bit too far back, looking just to back off that a little bit as we head underneath the bridge. Turns 11 and 12 into 13, out onto the start-finish straight. Who's going to get the best of exits? Well, it's looking like McKinley by a country mile. As Currington under pressure, McKinley pulls out. He tries to squeeze it down to the inside. Currington pulls back out again to take that racing line, looking for the switchback, but I think McKinley has got it done. From 10th on the grid, he's now up into the podium places, up 7 places already. Great move from McKinley. It's the replay of Rick, so this must be how he lost it, I'm guessing. Chris, yet again. Haven't seen many victims in race 2, but yet again, another victim. Oh, wow, that was close to Cullinan.
Yeah, I think Cullinan will be glad that he got past that before there was any trouble, but I feel so bad for Ricks because, you know, as soon as you do that first spin, all that heat in the tyres, and he's not been given any chance to relax because he's immediately had the 2 form drivers on the track behind him in Cullinan and McKinley, and then you can see how Cullinan's heart will be racing there. But yeah, and the reason Ricks has that second spin is because A, there's still the temperature in his tyres, B, the amount of adrenaline in his system from having that spin and then having to defend from 2 drivers in their own battle. That is a lot. I think many drivers would also have gone off in that situation. I think he ended up hitting, I wonder if it's going to affect his tyres, or I wonder if there was some contact with a wall after one of those 2 spins or not. It has promoted Alan Toon to 9th and now Jamie Ayres to 10th. And yeah, I mean, Cantus Gentry has managed, and Carl Hardy as a result, although you can see another victim of the high tyre temperatures here. And that's promoted Gentry up to 5th, but I don't think we expected McKinley to be on the podium after the second lap of this race. Yeah. He's now got Cullinan in his sights, although if we look at the most recent lap times, he was a second lap quicker than Cullinan, and with 4 minutes to go, that's possibly 2, maybe 3 laps if they can squeeze a 3rd one in. He might well just be able to catch around Cullinan, and the pressure Cullinan's going to feel once McKinley catches him, you never know. We might still have an opportunity to see 2nd place for McKinley here tonight.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, work cut out, but it will take some mistake in the top 2 for him to climb into place. Wow, we have a lot left to find out. 3 minutes is all that remains. Where Effort is right out. Harvey's mentioned it all race long. He is out cleared in the lead. 6 seconds, the advantage he has over Cullinan. Since that mistake Rogenberg made on the opening lap, he has been heading away off into the distance. Cullinan, he is in 2nd. McKinley in 3rd. Currington not far behind in 4th. Then Cantus Gentry in 5th. Great result for him if he can maintain that still, with Hardy in 6th. Rogenberg, wow, down and out, down to last place. The end of the first lap. Now back up into 7th. Great result for him. As we've got Ayres in 9th, Ollie Ricks. Well, that one mistake costing him nearly, and he's retired the car. Likewise has Toon too. Some drivers definitely being caught out here. Twin ring of Motegi.
I'm surprised Steve Hefford is willing to take that much curve on the exit. After the racing we've seen tonight, you'd think surely with a 6 and a bit second gap, with 1 more lap after this one to go, you drive as easy as you can and you don't take any risks whatsoever, because you know you can. If he drives 3 seconds lap slower than Cullinan and McKinley, he's still going to win at this stage. So I don't think he needs to take any risks whatsoever. I mean, broadly speaking, he's driving pretty cautiously already, but I just think, you know, stay away from that grass. Have you not seen what's happened to the other drivers when they haven't stayed away from it? But Cullinan, I think, probably has just enough about him to keep that second place. But you never know what the pressure will do to a person. That gap is under 2 seconds now, that gap. So McKinley's not going to have many opportunities if he does catch him. It will probably be into this corner here on the next lap if he can catch up, because I don't see anything happening into the last corner, because we've seen when cars have gone too wide, it's not ended well.
Certainly hasn't. You're starting to space out a little bit right now. This is all about just bringing it home, surely, for our drivers. Hefford, where the white flag is flown, he is on to the final lap. Just one more tour left here in Motegi to secure the victory. It's been a relatively calm place. McKinley, he's pushing hard. New fastest lap of the race for him. It's close right up onto the back of Ralph Cullen in his closing stages. He's really, really going for it here, Chris. The results clothing driver he's in for a comfortable last lap or two. Now, got everything to think about.
Yeah, but that's Alan Toon just ahead as well, just for extra food for thought, trying to get past the back marker. I think, well, that's now been solved, but can McKinley get past him? I think we're probably going to see a move before we get to turn 10. But is Cullinan going to be able to defend him? I don't see him being able to defend it for the rest of the lap, because McKinley does seem to have so much pace. Cullinan was a second slower in the first sector, so I wonder if he's made a mistake and that's what's allowed McKinley to catch him here.
Maybe might just be better off letting McKinley through here, because we're going to round turn 10 and be out onto the back straight. McKinley looking for the switchback, running it in a little bit deeper there, trying to get onto the power reserve. Past the ball, and here he comes on the slipstream. You do have to wonder, would Cullinan have been better just letting him through and then just getting him back on the slipstream out of turn 10 on the run down to turn 11? But I'll tell you what, Cullinan, he's going to give this a right fight to the line, not giving this one up easily, is the Irishman. But oh, and he's just pushed that bit too hard, and he's going to lose a place. He's going to fall off the podium because Currington's going to snatch it away from him at the depth. He loses out to his teammates with drama right until the dying seconds here in race 2.
That is heartbreaking. That is so heartbreaking for Cullinan, who had done nothing wrong all race until we're presuming an incident. We're presuming a small mistake on the first lap, first couple of corners of the final lap. But that was a pretty mad race compared to, as I think Carl Hardy was summing up what that race was like with his post-race celebrations of his 6th place. But that was a pretty special drive from Andrew McKinley as well.
Just waiting on this. Be able to bring you through some classified results here from Japan. Second round of the Asian leg of the series, round 10. The series that has been so far. Can't believe, Chris, we've just got 2 rounds, 2 weeks left of racing. Let's find out who's being crowned champion.
It's been pretty crazy. I've said it every race, I think. I just absolutely love the reverse grid format because it brings out some really crazy racing and it really spices things up, and it also gets us, it's nice to see which of our raw pace drivers can also make the overtakes work, and I think it's a really good test of a multitude of the driver's skills.
So it is. Take a look through your last 5 results here from race 2. Motegi, Hefford taking the victory. McKinley just getting past Cullinan to turn 11, final lap, and then that mistake from Currington. So from Cullinan on the exit of 13, where he's pushing so hard, trying to get the best possible run to attack McKinley again. Some deal, he causing him to spun, and in the end loses out that place on the podium to his teammate Currington by 9/10 of a second. Kansas Gentry, a great result for the American in 5th. Carl Hardy in 6th. Alex Rogenberg, great recovery drive from him to 7th. So he started on pole, led for the first few corners, had that spin. He even collected our winner Hefford, but out to the back of the grid and has managed to haul himself as a German all the way back up into 7th. Van Gaal into 8th with Jamie Ayres, last driver on the lead lap in 9th. Soon 2 laps down, but managed to get going again with Ricks retiring the car on lap 8. Well, Chris. Drama all the way. Yet again, we've said it so many times here in this league. Excitement. The green flag in race 1 all the way up to the checkered flag in race 2. Yet again. Not failing to deliver on action. We'll see you in a week's time. We join you from the mighty, iconic Suzuka.